Okay, I wanted to add a little information to the Norse cosmology of our world that I came across. I came across this one video that kind of explains in simple terms what Yggdrasil and the world tree are about. And I can put this video in the description box. Again, I don't want to do any copyright infringement. I like having some of this footage on, as just small clips on my channel, but, with all the copyright stuff, I feel like things should be shared freely without, having to gain consent from people, as long as it's not subverting anything. But, just to be safe, I try not to play too many things. I'm going to play just a small amount of this, and then I'm going to show you what I found regarding his design of our world, the cosmology that Dante has to say, and what it has to say about Jerusalem, and then some other videos that I came across about Jerusalem. So let's just listen to this for just a moment. And in this video, it does mention the name of the eagle, which I found kind of interesting.
Yggdrasil is the tree of the world in Norse mythology. This colossal tree is the most perfect tree that ever existed. Its roots are so profound that they reach the three most distant worlds. These are Jotunheim, Niflheim, and Helheim. Jotunheim, the frozen kingdom and land of the Jontar, also known as the Ice Giants, was ruled by the king of the Jontar, the giant Thrym. Niflheim, in turn, is a desolated and shadowy world where the ice and the freezing mist make everything even more sinister. This is where Nithog, the giant dragon, lives, who is constantly gnawing at the roots of Yggdrasil. Helheim is the kingdom of Hel, also known as Hela. This is the world of the dead in the Norse mythology. This world is inhabited by the spectra of souls of those who died without glory. Nithavalir, the land of the doors, is located above these three profound kingdoms.
Okay, so I don't want to play it all the way through. I just wanted to, give credit to this person who made this video, and this is See You in History Mythology. And I'll leave this video link in the description box so you guys can check this out and finish up the rest of this video. But I just wanted to add to this whole part of the bottom of the tree, because I feel like this is pretty significant, and why we need to begin truly questioning Israel and some of the things that go on there, and especially Jerusalem. Now, again, in Jordan Maxwell's research, he said that there never was an ancient Israel, but that the Khazarian Jews and all of this faction of people were trying to find a place to call the motherland and for the chosen ones. And they even tried to, he says, once upon a time, that they tried to even establish their chosen land in Texas, of all places. But he said they went to 7 different areas, and then they finally landed in Palestine because the Palestinians were just farmers, and they were able to easily take over and dominate and create the state called Israel. And there never was an ancient aspect to it. And if you look at what they had to say on the minting of one of the coins they did recently, they gave tribute to Trump. They put his face on one of the coins and was commemorating the creation of Israel only 70 years ago. Now, if you only just made a country 70 years ago, that means that there is no ancient aspect to the country. Anyway, that's in another video, but I want to keep going with what I discovered for this one. So I'm going to show you right now. Okay, now I came across this subject of the Jerusalem syndrome today. It came across my feed as a suggested video, and I had to incorporate this with the Yggdrasil tree and with Dante's cosmology, because this is kind of important, I feel. I mean, it's just another like clicking some puzzle pieces into place. Now, there's this thing called the Jerusalem syndrome, where people sort of lose their minds and get really super religious and even fanatical when they go visit Jerusalem. So I'm going to play this clip. It's only 7 minutes long. I'm just going to let you listen to this, and I'll leave the link in the description box.
Imagine traveling to a foreign country, and shortly after arrival, you begin to feel off. You're feeling anxious and have the need to isolate yourself. You develop unusual obsessions and begin shouting Bible verses and singing loudly. You are suddenly convinced you have an obligation to fulfill a religious mission, and then, after leaving the country, you're suddenly normal again and confused about what just occurred. This is Jerusalem syndrome. Jerusalem syndrome is a mysterious disorder that was first described in the 1930s by a Jerusalem psychiatrist named Heinz Hermann, although it never officially made its way into the DSM. People who experience Jerusalem syndrome phenomenon will start to undergo a psychotic religious-themed delusion shortly after visiting Jerusalem.
Because he told me I must come on a donkey this time. So I became the king, and I came on a donkey, and the next day I was the king.
In extreme cases, some people will believe that they are Jesus or another figure from the Bible. The condition does not seem to discriminate against religion, as it has affected Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. In many cases, the people who fall victim to this were perfectly healthy and never experienced any mental health issues beforehand. In most cases, the delusions suddenly disappear after a few weeks or immediately after leaving Jerusalem. Of all the documented cases of Jerusalem syndrome, they are split into 3 categories. Category 1 consists of people who are already diagnosed with a psychotic illness before going to Jerusalem. These people tend to go to Jerusalem because their delusions have led them to believe they have a mission to accomplish. It is also this group of people that is most likely to have more extreme delusions, such as believing they are a figure from the Bible. These cases are the most easily explainable, therefore not all that interesting. Category 2 consists of people who did not necessarily have a mental illness, but they did have an excessive interest in Jerusalem. This interest could be personal, but oftentimes it's associated with a religious group they are a part of. Although interesting, because they already had an abnormal interest in Jerusalem beforehand, their delusions aren't all that strange or noteworthy. Category 3 is the smallest and most puzzling group of subjects. These are the people who had no signs of mental illness before arriving in Jerusalem, nor did they have any unusual obsession with Jerusalem. Their delusions weren't quite as extreme as the people from the first 2 categories. They usually don't believe they're someone else and can still properly identify themselves when asked. But there are 7 distinct stages that everyone from this category goes through. The first stage they will go through is anxiety, agitation, and tension. The next stage is a desire to split away from the group they are traveling with and toward Jerusalem alone. Many tour guides who observe this behavior may take this as a sign to try and refer the tourist to a psychiatric evaluation to prevent the later stages of this condition. The third stage is having an unusual obsession with bathing and compulsive fingernail and toe cutting. Next, people will take their white bed sheets and wear them like a toga. The fifth stage is the need to shout Bible verses and sing hymns loudly. This is the biggest sign for hotel personnel and tour guides to try and get the affected individual help before the final stage develops. The final stage people experience is that they will march to one of Jerusalem's holy places, where they will deliver a sermon. The sermon is typically disjointed and not very well prepared. In some cases, people will develop a paranoid belief that a secret agency is causing their symptoms of psychosis through drugs. Between 1980 and 1993, only 42 people were reported to be in Category 3 of Jerusalem syndrome. An example of one of these patients was a Swiss lawyer who went on a group tour of the Middle East. They planned to spend a week in Greece, a week in Israel, and a week in Egypt. The lawyer was perfectly healthy beforehand, and their first week in Greece went totally fine. Once he went to Jerusalem, however, his symptoms began on the first night. He went through all the stages and then made a full recovery in a week. He then continued the tour in Egypt and went home in perfect condition. It's difficult to get much data on this because Category 3 subjects usually feel ashamed and don't want to talk about their experience after they recovered. The few that do say they felt a sense of something opening up inside of them, making them feel like they had an obligation to carry out. One thing that is important to note about this is that of the 42 subjects in Category 3, 40 of them were Protestants, one was Catholic, and one was Jewish. All 40 of the Protestants came from ultra-religious families, where the Bible was read together at least once a week. Many critics believe their strong religious backgrounds could have led to a temporary delusion like this. You could even argue that they could just be grouped as an extension of Category 2. It's also interesting how only Christians and Jews were in Category 3, never any other religions or atheists. So I think I would agree with this conclusion. I know of some people in the US who are perfectly healthy, yet have had some strange temporary religious delusions before. So I can see how if someone were strongly religious and then experienced the culture shock of visiting Jerusalem, it could definitely be a very emotional experience for them. The only part that does puzzle me is how most of the people in Category 3 all went through the exact same stages in the same order. Furthermore, it's worth noting this condition isn't unique to Jerusalem. There's another similar condition to this, known as Stendhal syndrome, where tourists observe art in Florence that is so beautiful, they end up having a panic attack, fainting, or in extreme cases, even hallucinating. Then there's Paris syndrome, which affects tourists who go to Paris and are so disappointed by Paris not being as beautiful as they had hoped. They'll experience delusions, feelings of persecution, derealization, and anxiety. I think that traveling in and of itself can elicit some very strong emotional reactions. And in the case of Jerusalem syndrome, if paired with a hyper-religious background, could cause you to act in strange ways.
Now we're going to hear from this other video.
The researcher Audi Mikoski describes a parallel reality that exists alongside ours that is home to parasitic entities that feed off human minds. The Gnostics believed that the archons, who once controlled our entire planet as cosmic rulers, now work on a smaller but equally destructive scale. They attach themselves to people who have a primarily negative outlook on life, whispering in their ears, draining us of our energy, and clouding and altering our perception of reality. These creatures jump from person to person and feed for relatively short periods and mainly come together in location-specific places like malls, airports, and museums. Across the Middle East and North Africa, there are a handful of location-specific anomalies that defy scientific explanation. For example, deep within Morocco's Atlas mountain range, there is a small area no larger than several square feet where all sound ceases to exist, with hikers and guides alike reportedly unable to hear anything, including themselves. This anomaly on Jebel Yagur is understood to be intermittent, shifting position, so its location is impossible to pinpoint. A larger location-specific phenomena has been reported by multiple eyewitnesses in the Bakirköy district in Istanbul, Turkey. According to local news reports, one of its oldest villas would literally vanish off the face of the earth for a second once a year, to spontaneously reappear again. However, one of the largest location-based anomalies that boasts an estimated range of 125 kilometers can be found in the heart of the Levant, nicknamed the Jerusalem syndrome. This mind-altering anomaly typically impacts travelers to the city, where upon arrival, they would undergo an extreme personality change, developing religiously themed psychosis until they leave the area. Since the late 90s, the anomaly has been covered a handful of times by the international media. who have mostly dismissed it as an unusual type of religious mass hysteria. But none of them have dug deeper into the origins of the phenomena and connected it to the manuscripts found in the Nal Hammadi library. Could apocryphal Gnostic texts concerning ancient Palestine prove that type of Lovecraftian horror is deliberately infecting the minds of 21st century visitors?
So this is what we're talking about now. You know, in some previous interviews I had done with Jerry Marzinski, which I haven't uploaded the very first one. Again, it got flagged because we had done a recording back in early 2021, I believe, and we were talking about some of the stuff involving the events of 2020, which got my video subsequently removed from YouTube. And I was given a warning strike for that. And I haven't edited all of that to put it back up yet. But what we're dealing with is these principalities that are unseen entities that are being summoned here by the Black magicians in our world who have been controlling and dominating our society. And through all of these ritual sacrifices and all of these, there's just different rituals that they do on specific dates, they've been summoning the spirits from the spirit realm. And that would be down in Niflheim and hell and places like that underneath us, where these lower astral entities would reside on a regular basis. But they have to be summoned here into our world and given a position. Usually they have to be able to dominate a body because they can't come here without help from humans. And this is also described in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. So what I found, and this was, you know, just from what I did the other day in my presentation of Yggdrasil, in Dante's model, down here at the bottom beneath hell, let me just kind of zoom in and scroll, there's Jerusalem. Now, why would this be some sort of aspect of hell? I mean, I'm presenting questions here because we're seeing weird stuff, and it's amazing that, you know, this synchronicity that's playing out before me in my life, with me coming out with the Yggdrasil presentation on Leap Project, and then this is coming across my feed with this Jerusalem syndrome. It's almost as if my spirit or higher self or some entity wants me to go ahead and connect more dots to this phenomena and these mysteries, and to present it to others so that we can, you know, add more to this narrative. Because, you know, without connecting these dots, we're not going to know exactly what's going on around us at all times. And I feel like this Jerusalem is actually some aspect of hell that we are unaware of, and that Israel, which is Isis, Ra, and El, they're three names of the sun god Ra, that is not an ancient culture, and that we've been lied to about what Hebrew is. And if anyone has done any sort of research on what Jordan Maxwell had said about Israel not being that old, and that it was established basically with the permission of the Rothschilds family, I think, and the Khazarian Jews, they needed a place to establish their promised land for the chosen ones, and all of this nonsense. And I'm going to go ahead and call it nonsense, because they have been leading the charge on all the deception of the world. And there is no chosen ones. We are all chosen under God to be the rulers of this domain. And, you know, if anyone thinks that they are beneath someone else, they are mistaken. I'm sorry, but we were all created equal. You hear this time and time again, we're all created equal, but somehow our land is no longer equal for us, because we have given up our rights and just played along to the beat of the drum of whoever is ruling over us, when no one is actually supposed to rule over us. We are supposed to be the rulers of this realm. That's why we have dominion here. We have dominion over the land, air, and water, and that is the law. So, what is this Jerusalem thing? I've got to look more into what this Jerusalem of Dante's model truly is and what he thinks Jerusalem is about. So I'm going to go and do that now. Okay, so I wanted to kind of tie it into what Dante was saying about Jerusalem. I still can't find much information about what their version of Jerusalem truly means, because what we have is Dante, who had sort of taken some of his design of the cosmology. This is based on what they call a comedy, that Dante was a poet and that he created a comedy based on this model and stuff, but that a lot of his work actually kind of coincided with Ptolemy had written before. And so just in this little excerpt here, it says Claudius Ptolemy concluded in the middle of the 2nd century AD in Alexandria his main work, which was the Megale Syntaxis, which is big assortment. His worldview, the stationary center of the universe, is the spherical earth, of which only one half occupied with the vertex Jerusalem, and that means the high point of Jerusalem. The other is covered by ocean. Now, it goes in to say that down into the sea, now obviously no longer Ptolemy's ideas, but Dante's, as an exact antithesis to Jerusalem, is the mountain of purification. So down here we have Jerusalem, and the mountain of purification is up here. So what does that really mean? If you are being purified on one side and they say the antithesis is Jerusalem, that would imply that Jerusalem is not such a great place, right? If you have to go across from it, and its antithesis is the purification ground for, obviously, the soul, is what they're implying. What is this Jerusalem that they're putting in this model? I have to question this, because it's obviously of some sort of great importance, and there's a history here that has been hidden about this place. But yeah, so it also mentions down here that hell's entrance is near Florence, with the circles descending into Earth's center. I think we need to investigate some of this stuff more. It's still kind of confusing to me all about what these people were actually getting onto, when they were around, because it's sort of bits and pieces, and it's kind of scattered, and it's scattered, smothered, covered, y'all, just like Waffle House. For those of you who live in the South or around the South, you know what Waffle House is. Scattered, smothered, covered. Yeah. I don't know. I think this is going to take a lot more investigating, and I'm sure that synchronicity will take its hold in my life with something like this if I'm meant to find out more about this. I just thought I would present this because I found this very fascinating, that Jerusalem is actually a place that's listed in Dante's model, but that doesn't really have anything to do with what the city is over in Israel. But what I think we're seeing in Israel is, again, what it stated in that other video. I feel like it's probably entity attachments or some sort of influence of magical arts, being the dark magical arts, not the white magical arts, because of the effect that it has on certain people. And those people could be very weak in their willpower. If you are weak in your willpower and you don't know yourself fully, you can be influenced by these thought form entities. And they are not necessarily stronger than anyone in any kind of physical sense or otherwise, but the people who do not have the will to stand against what these voices in their head can influence them to do, then, that's how they have power over people. And we need to help people realize that your thoughts are not always your own, and you need to know yourself very well in order to recognize these entities. They are principalities of a lower nature, and they are absolutely controlling everyone out here in the world who has addictions and other problems. And this is something that myself and others are trying to get out as a message to the rest of humanity, to be mindful of your thoughts and to step away from the spirit juice, because that's what spirits are. When you drink alcohol, which is al-ghul, which is an Arabic term, which means dark spirit or evil spirit or something like that, that's an Arabic term, al-ghul, and that's where alcohol comes from. And it means dark spirit, and it just is a literal connotation. And you're allowing these things in when you don't have control of your mind and what you do, your actions. So I encourage people to look further into all of this, and I'm going to go ahead and leave this in the description box so that people can research and follow along, and maybe you can come up with some more information. We need more people out here digging as we present some topic. Some of us who are out here trying to just awaken others, just go dig some more. We're all in this to try to figure out what's going on and present all the evidence to each other so that we can really create the bigger picture. So you guys have a good day, and I will see you on the next one.